Yeah, streaming is a great idea until you remember DIT Wi-Fi. I don't think I can record. It's going to be like, how big is it? 2-hour recording in OBS? Freaking huge, I'd say. See, it needs to be decent enough for them to see it. Sorry guys, let me see. We back up? All right, we're in business. Okay, let me just go over that stuff real quick again. When you start up Max, this is what it looks like. Click on here, right click here, make sure it's shaded so you don't have shadows, and then bottom right button here will maximize whatever viewport you're clicking on. Cool? All G? Alright, so you can follow along if you like, you don't have to. I'm just going to show you this bit here. When you start off by default, there is this panels up here, these little panels on the right hand side. Now I'm going to call them by their names, so just remember them. This little sun one is called the create panel. This rainbow thingy is the modify panel. So for today we're only going to really use the create and the modify panel. So we're going to create something and then we're going to modify it in, guess what, the modify panel. Okay, so the create panel by default gives you a bunch of things called standard primitives. They're your basic kind of shapes. If you click on this, it should show you a bunch of other stuff. There's like extended primitives and a bunch of other fancy stuff, but for today we're just going to use standard primitives. I'll show you what they look like. If I click on box, if you click, hold and drag, it makes the shape of the box. When I let go, I've let go, and I move my mouse up and down, that's the height, and I click again, and now this is a shape. I will right click to stop creating. If I don't right click, it's going to keep creating boxes. So I need to right click to actually stop creating. So there's boxes. If you want to delete something, it is straight up just delete button. And there are spheres and cylinders and stuff like that. Now we got a problem because when I create this sphere and this cylinder, they're all smooth and I can't see how many polygons are on there. So what I want to do is go back up here to shade it again, right click on that, and I want edge faces. So I want to be able to see all my edges. So now I can see that this is actually quite a high polygon model, and so is this. So I'm just going to delete this guy. I'm just going to work with a sphere for now, just so we can play around. If you guys want to create a sphere, go ahead. To move, which is the most important thing, I guess, I completely forgot. Middle mouse button click. That will pan left and right. Middle mouse button click. Alt middle mouse button will rotate around stuff. And then scroll wheel just scrolls. LG. Alright, so I've made this sphere. I can click on it to select it. You can also click on it here. This guy is called the Scene Explorer. You may not have it. If you don't, you just need to go to, I think it's like Customize, Show UI. It's one of these. I can't remember. I'll sort it out later. But there should be here, and you should be able to just click on it to select it as well. You can now go, because it's selected, to the Modify panel to modify this sphere. Now, if I'm not selecting anything, the Modify panel will be blank because I got nothing to modify. If I select it, I've got the Modify thing, and I can then modify the properties of this sphere. There's the radius here, like how big it is, and how many segments it is. The amount of segments increases the poly count, and less segments decreases the poly count, all right? So the super low poly, and the more polys I add, the more it gets to. Okay, that's great and all, but right now all I'm doing is just making it bigger and smaller and just making more segments and less segments. It's not really that fancy. Now there are 3 buttons I would like you guys to remember, 3 shortcuts: W, E, and R. They correspond to this: move, rotate, and scale. W, E, R. So when I move, I get this little, I'm on move right now, yeah? I get this little three coordinate system toggle. If I hover over only the Y, you see it kind of highlighting? This means that I can only move in the Y direction. I can also hover over this little square here, and you see that both the X and the Z are highlighted. And if I do that, it moves in both X and Z direction. And if I click in the center of it, I can freeform do whatever I want. Okay, so that's basically how the move tool works. Then I have the rotate tool, which is E, and it's kind of the same thing. If I hover over this, it only allows me to rotate in that direction. This only allows me to rotate in that, and if I do in the center, I can do whatever I want. Control Z will undo in case you make a mistake. Final one is scale, and exactly the same as all the rest. If I hover over here, scales only in that direction. This scales in both, so it's kind of making like a little donut shape. And if I hover in the middle, scales in all three axes. Cool. All right, so whoever has it up, just try that. Just get a bit used to it. Try to move, try to rotate, try to scale before we move on to the next step. Just mess around with it. We don't care about this sphere. This is our screwing around with sphere, so it's completely G if it gets screwed up. We all good? Okay. Next thing is we can kind of squash this sphere and rotate it and do stuff to it, but we can't really change its topology. Like even if topology is basically like the actual kind of mesh outline of it, if you will. I can do this, but it's still essentially a sphere, right? It's still essentially a sphere that's just been flattened. I can't really do anything except just squish it and flatten it and rotate it. So if I actually want to change the topology of it, I need to create, to make it into something called an editable poly. So to do that, it's really simple. You just right click on it, and you should see a convert to button. Don't touch any of the rest of these. Just go to convert to, and there's a thing called editable mesh and editable poly. Don't care about editable mesh. It is basically the old version of the poly. I don't even know why it's still in there. So just go to editable poly and just click on that. And you'll see that the modify panel has changed, because now the modify panel knows that this is an editable poly, and it gives me a whole ton of other options. So again, it was just right click on the sphere, convert it to editable poly. All good? Awesome. Now, in editable poly mode, you remember I was talking about vertices and edges and borders and all that jazz? Well, right here is a vertex selection tool. If I click on that, it now selects and it shows me all the vertices. And if I click drag, click and drag, there we go. We've got a little box selection here, and that allows me to select stuff. You can change your selection mode up here. I need to look at it. Up here, you click and hold. You can do like a circle select for some reason if you want that. And you can do like a spray select mode. I don't know. But I like the square select. So you can select stuff. And if you want to deselect something, it's Alt, like so. So if I Alt and select, it deselects. If I want to add more, it's Shift, so I can add more stuff. Now you got to be careful when you're selecting as well. When I select like this, it will also select everything behind it. Okay, so it kind of like does cut through the whole model when I select, and it selects everything through the whole model. There are ways to turn it off. If you do this, ignore backfacing. That means it will only select the stuff that's in front of me. See? So it's ignoring all the ones at the back. So that's this guy here, ignore backfacing. So that's vertices. Now, why is this useful to me? I selected these vertices. I'm using the move tool, and I can then just move these vertices. Ooh, fancy. You can see that I'm now changing the topology of a sphere. It is no longer a sphere. It is now some sort of weird half UFO thing. Actually, if I select all of them and I kind of scale, should be able to do like a UFO. There we go. Cool. And you can select a bunch of stuff and move it all down. And you see this is called box modeling, basically. It's like the old school step by step moving each vertex and moving each polygon and stuff. So this is vertex movement. We got edge as well. Edge, it selects, guess what, edges. And same thing, you can move them, you can rotate them, you can scale them. So now I've got like some sort of weird engine room thing. Looks terrible, but what else? We got polygons, which will select the polygon. And this guy, element, will select a whole element. An element is anything that's connected. Now, I only have one element here, so this is all just one giant element. Okay? But if I had like a copy, let me just copy. To copy, hold shift. I'm just going to clone to elements. So now this object, I still have only one object, it's called sphere 001, but it's made up of two elements. So I can select this element or this element. Cool. And I can delete that. If you want to rename your sphere, it's up here. You can rename it to whatever you want. And you'll see it change here as well. Now, anyone remember the border? If I click on border and I select it, it's not selecting anything. Anyone remember why?
Because there's no hole.
There ain't no hole.
Ain't no hole.
So I got to make a hole. So I'm going to use polygon. I'm just going to select these guys and make a hole. And again, just delete. And you'll see that it's made. Oh crap! I accidentally selected those ones. Alt click to deselect and delete. Cool. I got a hole now. And I can use the border and select that hole. Now border's a bit weird. If I hold shift and move, it extrudes new polygons. Like so. If you don't hold shift, it just does that. Just moving it. And you can scale and all that jazz with the border. Alright, now remember when I said polygons are one-sided? So I'm going to look below this. It looks like it's all G, but if I do a quick render here, you see they're completely invisible inside. Yep, so always be careful of that. Polygons can only be seen from one direction. Now it's not like this is bad, because if this was like a table or something, in a game, if this was a table or something and this was just like placed there, the player is never going to look underneath it, so it's completely fine if it's empty inside. That's completely fine. It's just never have a hole where the player will be able to see it. Cool. Alright, do you guys want to mess with that for like a few minutes? Just select a bunch of polygons. Oh, not the whole thing. Select a bunch of polygons and just hit delete, and that will delete those polygons and make a hole. So the weirdest part is just trying to get used to moving stuff and rotating it around.
Oh no.
What do you do? Oh, don't go slave material. Just close that window. And we are also going to do a very important thing called Control S. Now, 3ds Max will crash on you, guaranteed. It will crash on you at some point. So just get used to Control S'ing. I'm going to save it. Are you using a trackpad? Are you seriously using a trackpad?
Yeah, yes.
How do you middle mouse button?
What?
Are you using the stupid little box?
No, you can't be using it in the
Oh, screw you, Max. Wait, you're not even on a Mac. Yeah. Just can you make one of the mice from the thing?
No, they're locked in. Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, I didn't think I need to say, but yeah, straight up you need a mouse with a middle mouse button click, because some mice don't have middle mouse button. If you want to kind of do a quick render, by the way, it's Shift Q just to do a quick little render. It's not a beautiful render. This is called a scanline render. It's just a basic render, but it does kind of just give you an example of where your holes and stuff are. Shift Q. Does everyone have Photoshop on their laptops as well?
Yes.
Shift Q for quick render. Just gonna check my Discord babies. Nope, they're all G. I'm still gonna run out of battery though. What you don't want to do, guys, is you don't want to do this as well. So if I grab a bunch of vertices and I copy them, I'm going to get a bunch of vertices in space. But if I render, you'll see they're nothing. They're not there at all. So there's just this bunch of points that don't do anything. You definitely don't want that. If every time you copy, just always make sure there's polygons. You won't see anything unless there's an actual polygon there. Cool? I don't even know if you can copy an edge. Let's see if you can do it. Never remember. Nope, just doesn't even, straight up doesn't let you. Nope. Yes, you.
Actually, I should say that.
Also, guys, don't worry, it's on your face here, it's fine. Once you convert it to an edible poly, that's it. You can't go back to the sphere mode and mess around with the sphere mode. There is a way to do it, which is you add a modifier and stuff like that, but that's just a little bit more down the line. We'll talk about that later. But for now, just remember when you're creating the sphere and you're adding the segments and stuff, once you convert it to edible poly and you mess around stuff with it, that's it. Like, okay, that's pretty much gone. Why is he so hairy? What? Don't talk to the doctor about that. 3D modeling class, they don't do. Is anyone completely pissed off at Max right now? No? Really? Alright. I see someone accidentally turn on. Okay, in Max, it is very easy to accidentally turn on a lot of stuff that's super annoying. This is number one. Snap tool, S. You see it up here? It automatically turns on if I hit S, and then all of a sudden I'm doing this thing where my mouse is locking to the grid. Super annoying. That's it's very useful for making sure that I snap objects to certain grid points. Super useful, but annoying as hell if I don't know what's going on. Like, I'm trying to move this guy up and it doesn't want to go up because it's snapping. So S is that guy. Spacebar is the other one. So let me just click on this. I'm moving this and I'm doing all sorts of stuff. And then I want to click over here and I can't click over here. I'm like, why am I selecting this? Spacebar locks. And the only indicator that Max will give you is a tiny yellow button down here that tells you that it's locked. And if you don't know that, you're just like, what's going on? So just watch out for those two. Spacebar and S is the most common ones I see. And spacebar just basically locks selection, so it doesn't select anything else. Cool. Are we all good to continue, or you want to play around a bit more? We'll play around a little bit more. Oh yeah. Okay. I don't know, people still play. You fucking put in frame modifiers on? Yeah. Trying to crash the computer. Yes.
Is there any possibility I can download Microsoft?
No, you through the school.
Or I don't know, to get a...
So you can get a 3ds Max license just using the. You have a DIT email now, right?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on Autodesk you can download it. The problem is it doesn't run on Mac. So you need to have a virtual machine that runs Windows, and then you can install 3ds Max there.
Yeah. Do you mean to download this one?
Yes, but it's only Windows, unfortunately.
So I need to buy like...
Either
Or there are...
I don't know if they're like cheap student. There has to be. You can chat to John about that. He might know more.
I will.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'll check out for you as well.
Okay, yeah. Because you don't have like an online version of it, I guess.
Of Max?
Oh yeah.
No.
Okay,
No.
cool.
Yeah. So
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
no problem. How is my Twitch so slow?
Censoring.
Oh really? They could so mess with their ass.
Right now you are saving the file?
Yeah, Control S. Another thing you might want to set up, especially if it's your own Macs, you might want to go customize preferences and go to files, and there should be blah 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 auto backup here. You probably want to enable it, and the number of auto back files is how many files it will save, and basically and by default every 5 minutes it's going to save a copy of file. It's always a good thing to have, just in case. So customize preferences, auto back. Customize preferences, go to files, auto backup. But do also get in the habit of Control S, because auto backup also sometimes crashes. Oh, like all 3D programs, every single 3D program, Blender, Maya, Max, they all do this. Yeah, the unreliable. That's like going to a drag race on a fucking skateboard. Like, oh, my skateboard never breaks down, man. Okay. When we are done, we can delete the sphere, or another thing you can do is just hide it right here. This little light bulb will turn stuff off, so it's still there. I can't select it anymore, but it is still there. And if I do want to select it, I can select it from here and still move it around from here. But it is just not visible to me. Okay. So what we're going to do today is we're going to make a very, very, very simple object. It is just straight up a crate. I want to make a crate, and if I'm going to make a crate, what's the basic shape I should probably start with? A box, right? So like this is the whole thing in 3D. A lot of very complex shapes can be broken down into very simple shapes, and you always want to start with that primitive and make it more complicated. Yeah.
Oh no, it's
All right, you guys. What kind of person scratches like that? All right, so I'm going to do a box. My voice broke there. Click, drag. I don't really care about making it perfect because I can change that later. Do a box. Right click to stop making a box. Go to the modify panel. I only want one segment for length, width, and height. Only one. Okay, I just want one of each. And here in the parameters, I can also say how long it is. I don't really care as long as it's equal. So I'm just going to do like 40, 40, 40. So now it's a perfect box. And I can tell that by looking around it, it's a perfect cube, even. What?
Your perfect son.
It's not my son. I didn't raise no box.
My son was about 10 years.
Tauruses for life.
What was that? Jesus.
You okay, man? Okay.
You joking?
Just for all the Twitch people. Do you want to repeat that just so they can hear? Okay. Once you got this box, so what was it to convert to edible poly? Can anyone remember?
Right click.
Dace. The other way you can do it is also modifier list right here. Modifier list. So the way 3ds works is if you guys know Photoshop, you know you can add layers on top of stuff. This modifier list is sort of like a filter. It's almost like a layer that goes on top. So if I click on modifier list, there's a ton of shite. But I can also type. So if I want edit poly, I'm just going to type E. It just goes straight here, and I can click on edit poly. Now, why that's useful is I can turn it on and off here as well, right? So let's say I do this. I'm going to move this guy up. If I turn off the edit poly, it kind of like remembers what I did in the edit poly. And I can, in this case, you go back down to box, add more segments and stuff. But it kind of doesn't really work that well, you see. It probably works with, oh god. It works with that. So it doesn't work as well as it should. So again, the best case scenario is almost always just make sure you know how many you need. Like for today, we know we're just doing 1, 1, 1. And I can also remove the modifier using the little trash can button here. Trash can. So, edit poly. So you can either add the edit poly modifier or right click convert to edible poly. Either or works. I don't really care. Cool. Okay, so when you're in edit poly mode, we've seen how to select stuff and move it around and stuff. There's also a bunch of other things you can do with vertices and edges and polygons. Is every time you click one of these selection modes, this bar changes. So it gives you options that only relate to polygons. If I click on vertices, it gives you options that only relate to vertices. There's some crossover between the different selection modes, but a lot of the time they're not the same. So if I click on polygon and I select one of the polygons, I can do a thing called, you'll see what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make a little inset and then I'll extrude to make a crate shape. So I'm just going to show you what I'm doing first. Here's an inset button. If I click on that, click and drag, and you see I'm insetting. Now this doesn't really do anything except make a new polygon inset inside it. If I do a quick render, you'll see it still looks like a flat face, right? So to actually make it look different, I'm going to extrude it. So if I extrude, I can extrude out or in. I'm just clicking and dragging right now. And I'm going to extrude in just a teeny bit. Don't go too far because it'll clip outside. So I'll just go like a little bit in. And now right click to stop doing it. Right click to stop doing almost everything in Max. If I do Shift Q, you see like it actually has an edge inside and it's actually pushed in. All right. So I just did an inset and extrude there. Now I need to do this to all the other sides. I need to do it exactly the same because it's a crate. It's going to look exactly the same on all sides. So I don't want to do it manually. I don't want to click inset and do it manually again. Now every time you see a little square in 3ds Max, this little square, they always look like this little square. If you click on it, if you hover over it, it says settings, but if you click on it, it gives you a bunch of settings and you can manually add in settings here. What it also does is it remembers what you did the last time. So the last time I did an inset, I must have moved it by 5.336, whatever. So I guess that's what I did. So it automatically remembers that, and then all I need to do is hit the accept button. I'm just like, yeah, cool, do that. Now it's inset it for me. If I want to do it for extrude, again, same thing. Setting. I guess I did it by -5, whatever. Cool. All right, so it's done it for all of them for me. It's pretty decent. So if you guys want to just do that real quick on your crate.
That's in the modifier. No.
You what? You can do edible poly in the modifier. You just type in and it should bounce you to where it is. Like click on the modifier panel.
No, I have it in.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay. Another thing. Sorry. You guys may see your panel like this, which is awkward as heck, and you need to like grab it and move down. Oh, go away, Photoshop.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So you may need to just like kind of scroll down to try and find it. The other thing you can do is hover over here, and you should be able to pull out the panel. You can even pull it out 3 times and get like all the options there, which is easy to do. There's a ton of stuff in there, so don't worry too much about that. We will go through that. What version are most people on? Are we on 2016, 2017, 2018?
I'm on 2018.
Well, la-di-da. Okay, I'm on 2016, just in case someone was. So if everyone's on 2018, I can go to 2018. 2016? Okay. Yeah, because you get it free anyway, right?
The difference seems to be they make the icons like
They're like pretty.
yeah, they're like
Now, there's a couple of very useful differences that are not useful to us right now, but they will be later. I still like 16 though. I feel like it's relaxed.
you're used to.
It's not even that, because I was on 14, 13, I think. I think I learned on like 9 or something. I can't remember. Back before Max had numbering.
Old man.
Yeah, I know. No, I didn't learn on that. I definitely had a year. Can't remember. Anyway, this is not history of Bad's class. Let's just get these box made. Oh yeah, you can hit enter as well.
When you select all the faces, you just be like setting on one.
Can, but it will do a weird thing that I didn't want to go over. But you do it. Okay, I'll undo this. You can also select all the faces. Let me just do that. Boom. All right. So by default, if I select a bunch of faces and inset them all at the same time, it will kind of do this because it's going to try and inset all of them at the same time. But you can also change what it's insetting by. So this is a group. So it's going to inset them all together as a group. I can tell it, ignore the group and go to by polygon, and it will inset each one by polygon. All right, and then click OK. Do not inset stuff you've already inset, because then you will inset and inset, and then it's going to be like Alice in Wonderland. So if you're kind of worried, just do it like manually, one by one. You did enter as well. Yes. You can also control click to select one, control to the other one. So I did say that before, but in case I was too fast, when you're using a polygon, control click will add more, and alt click will always deselect. Control to add, alt to deselect.
I'm just on lost. It's too easy.
So has everyone got a crate? Or do we wait for a little bit? Just let me know if you want to wait. It's completely fine. I just don't want to go forwards if people are left behind, okay? So don't feel bad if you're a little behind. That's completely fine. So I'll ask again. Are we all good to continue? Yeah? Anyone not? Sweet. All right. So I finished the mesh modeling part of the class. I've already modeled what I need to. This is a pretty decent crate. Doesn't have any texture on it, but it looks like a crate and it'll work like a crate. That's all I need. So I'm done with modeling. Now, every time you're done with modeling, never, ever, ever have one of these selections on. Just click on it again to deselect it. I'll show you what happens if you don't have this. So if I have this on and I add another modifier on top, let's say I'm gonna do a push modifier. This should be able to push. And if I push, it's gonna do nothing because I have a selection on. I have a selection, so the other modifier is looking for my selection. And I have nothing selected. So the other modifier is like, well, nothing selected, so I'm not gonna do anything to anything. Whereas if I select some things and go back up to push, this should push them. There we go. So it's only pushing the ones that I'm selecting, okay? So it's doing stuff to my selection. So almost, unless you're only trying to modify certain parts of the model, always turn off your selection when you're going to add a new modifier, which is exactly what we're going to do. We're going to add a new modifier onto this. So I'm turning off my selection, not selecting anything anymore. Now the modifier that I'm going to use is something called an Unwrap UVW modifier. Now a UV map is basically coordinates. If I Google UV map, it's basically coordinates that my model will use to know where to be textured from. Actually, this is a great example here. That is not loading, okay. All right, so this is kind of like what UVW maps look like. And essentially, like wherever this polygon is on the picture is what it will show, okay? So we're gonna be doing that. We're gonna be assigning parts of a picture to our model. So the first thing we're going to want to do is to make a picture to assign it to. So I don't know about you guys. I'm going to make like all the inner parts wood. I always do this. I always like the inner parts to be wood, and I'm going to make the outer parts, like this frame here, to be like metal. So it'll look like, you know, a box that's wooden and then bound by metal bars around it. That's kind of what I want to do. Which means I know that in my texture, it's gonna be, it's gonna have to have wood in it, and it's gonna have to have metal in it, okay? So in games, we're always trying to reduce the amount of stuff we use. We're trying to optimize. So there is an example on here. See, like that's one picture. It's got metal and it's got wood. You can use a metal picture and then a separate wood picture and a separate like whatever picture, but the problem is they will all come in as a different material, okay? And a different material is another draw call in Unity. It's another overhead. So every time you have a new material, it's another thing that Unity has to remember and call upon. So if I have all the textures for one object that I need on one texture, it just calls that one texture and that one material, okay? Let me see if I can, one note, let's see if this works. Can I draw? Okay, I don't care. How do I add a new, oh god, page? Yay! Can I draw? Can't draw. Oh, draw. No. No. Highlight. How do you draw? Ah, you're not so freaking smart now, are you? Doesn't work. Oh, draw. Yay. No? No. I guess I need my pen. I left my pen behind. Okay, that's annoying. Okay. I'm gonna have to talk about this, and I don't have a visual aid, but essentially, it won't work. Mine's on Wacom, you're on Entrig. Essentially, the way it works is there will be this thing called a material, and materials are almost always in Unity. Have you guys seen materials in Unity? Yeah, you have, yeah. So the materials are always like this kind of ball-shaped thing that shows you what the material looks like. You'll assign a texture to the material, and the texture is straight up just the color information. So this is the color information that I have there. It's just straight up this. The material itself will be how it looks and reacts to light. So am I a shiny material? Am I transparent? Am I like glossy? Am I matte? Whatever it is, that's how the material will control it. Now Unity will look very different to Max. The material will look very different to Max and Unity, so don't take Max as an indicator of how it looks like in Unity, okay? So we need to add the unwrap UVW modifier, and to do that, modifier list, you can just type U and it'll bring you down to the U section, and there's unwrap UVW. I hope anyone who is doing the class, please download Max in English, because these modifiers are listed alphabetically, and in different languages, like it's not called unwrap UVW, I don't even know what it's called, so it won't work like if I tell you what it is. Okay, so when I have unwrap UVW, it'll give me this thing, and I'll have an editor that I'll be able to assign polygon parts to a texture that's in here. Obviously I have no texture right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a texture. I looked for wood and metal. You can look for whatever you want. So all I did was I looked for like wooden texture. If you don't have Photoshop, you can just download that texture that I have on Discord. And I just copied one of these and pasted it into Photoshop. Now, in Photoshop, while you're making your, I apologize, it's a lot of info. I'm sorry, I know there's a lot of stuff to learn, but when you're making your stuff, you make a new document, right? How big do you want to have it? So the higher res it is, the more memory it'll take up, the more expensive it'll be, but the fancier looking it's going to look. The other thing to remember is they're always going to have to be a power of 2. So I'm going to do like 1024 by 1024. Now, what is a power of 2? Everyone knows what a power of 2 is? If you just Google power of 2, it's basically like all the numbers that RAM and SSDs come in. They're all these guys. If you don't know what they are, here we go. This column here, don't need to know about anything else. So generally for textures, for pixel art, you're looking at like 16, 32, 64. For textures, you're looking at minimum 256, I guess. Unless it's stuff that's really far away and upwards. So this is 4K textures. When people talk about 4K, this is what they mean, 496. When people talk about 8K textures, this is what they mean, 8192. I think Unity only accepts up to 8192, I think. It does not go higher. So if it's, say what? No. If it's a power of 2, it also means that both sides of the image need to be power of 2. So I have 1024 wide, it's also 1024 high. All 3D textures are always like this. By the time you get advanced enough to not use a square texture, you will know why you are not using a square texture. Before that stage, just always make sure it's a square texture, okay? Because you will understand, like it's just the easiest thing to use for now. I'm gonna paste that image in. I'm gonna do the metal one actually. So metal, cartoon, texture. Can you what? Well, you can make one, but like not now. Just gonna copy that and paste it. Oh, that fit perfectly. Okay, great. And same for this guy. Cartoon. What else? Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have it like this. I'm gonna have the metal border be outside and the wood border be inside, and you'll see why in a sec. And once I'm done, just save that as a PNG. Give it a name that you can remember and save it somewhere you can find it. I'm sorry my lecture is so boring to you. What? I'll bring sweets next time. Do those striptease.
That's good to get that webcam set up.
Oh god. Alright, so when you save as a PNG. Like pretty much most of the time you want to do a PNG unless you're trying to really save on space. And then that's pretty much all we need in Photoshop. gonna just get rid of that. And I should have my texture saved somewhere. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so it's saved here. Awesome. So let everyone have a bit of time to do that. And we're going to go back to Max once you have that ready. If your entire screen goes red like this, you probably have one of these buttons set up. These are for animation, so just turn them off. Because it's quite, I think it's S or something, will turn, no, something else will turn them on. N or something. I don't know. So what? You know how to make it? In 3Ds.
Probably give it a bash.
Do it, that's your homework. Come in next week, make the answer. No, straight up.
Like textured and everything.
No, just the shape. Just the shape.
Okay, let's see. It's my last year. This one's your project.
Is that thing like that? My dissertation is on the
The cool primary school S.
Where did that S come from? Yeah.
There's actually
Oh well, that's. What's it called? Is it just called S shape?
Superman S.
Oh man, it's a voice article.
Oh yeah? Well, that's not. It's not Superman S.
Cool S.
Superman.
A cool S shape. There has to be a name for it. Yeah, I'm sorry, streamers.
Skater S. Superman S.
Oh, Skater S, is it?
There's multiples. There's a wiki page that has all of the names of it.
Okay, well that's not.
There.
Cool
S.
S.
Also known as Skater S. Superman. Stussy S.
Dusty.
Stussy.
Yeah, 3D model this.
How to draw cool S.
Why does everyone know how to draw?
Because it's like so easy.
Yeah.
Streets.
You're not cool.
Everyone-
S stands for streets.
Very original.
What's going on? Cool S. You know, cool S.
Skater S. Oh yeah.
Adam's gonna 3D model it.
Can that be our complaint? So I'm already at McDonald's.
What, the cool S?
Yeah, like the cool S.
Yeah, like straight up for next week, I'm not even kidding, homework is make the cool S in 3D. I'm not even joking. Just show me you can do it. No, seriously, you'll learn loads doing it. You actually will. It's actually a pretty decent shape to learn.
You like, it's just like make your own shape.
Yes, there's a thing called a spline, I don't want to go over it yet, but you can basically draw a path and shit.
Yeah.
Did it tattoo?
No, you don't. You don't. Do an S shape without using a spline. It's actually quite a hard.
Start a cube with a
I'll buy like Angel Danger Donut for the best S.
The coolest S.
For the coolest S.
that's been 3D.
I didn't have the logo, just 3D.
And if the streamer people want to do an S as well, I'll mail you the fucking donut if you win.
Like 8 minutes behind. There's this conversation. Why?
Okay, are we all G with that? Yeah?
Yeah.
I need a bit more time? No? No, we good? Okay. So, how do we actually get that texture onto our 3D model? First thing, the one that someone opened up before that they panicked about. The material editor. We want to go to the material editor to edit the material and add a material to our object. The shortcut for that is M. M for Mike. Now, if your material editor does not look like this, very nice and safe collection of happy spheres, I almost said balls. Go to here. Like if it looks like this and you're terrified, that's fine. just go to modes and go to the compact material editor. Like most of the time, we basically just want to work with the compact material editor. There's a lot of fancy stuff you can do with a slate, and there's even PBR nowadays, but we don't really need that. So by default, all the materials have this kind of like gray matte material. So let's add our texture onto it. So I don't know if you remember from the presentation, I said, did I say? I did, yeah, up here, but I did real quick. There's diffuse, which is the color, and there's normal maps, which are the kind of fancy light bending maps. So diffuse is here, there's diffuse. Now you can change the color of diffuse just by clicking on this, but in this case, we actually want to add our texture to tell it to use our diffuse texture. And that's here, where there's a little blank button. It's really dumb. It's just a little blank button that looks like nothing. You click on none. It's going to give you a ton of options. We just want a bitmap, because it is a form of bitmap. It's a kind of image. Click on bitmap, and go look for our bitmap. Where is it at? Forgot where I put it. There we go. There it is, and just add it, double click it, and you should see the material changes. Material changes, so it's using our texture now. It's pretty great. All you need to do, drag it on. Boom. Oh no, it's only showing gray. Why? Because Max is dumb, and it's, again, it comes from the old school days when it costs a lot of processing power to render the texture. So by default, Max will allow you to assign the material, but it won't start rendering the texture until you tell it to. It's a safety feature from back in the old days. So you just need this button here, show shaded material in viewport. Click on that, and now it is visible. And let me know if this does not work. Once you are done, you can close the material panel. We don't need the material panel anymore. You're not. So it looks all weird, right? And it does not look. It doesn't look like it's done properly, and that's because Max doesn't really have a clue what we want to do with this. Like, we know it's a crate. We know that this middle part here should be wood and this part should be metal. Max does not know that. Max is a stupid program. It, like, will do exactly what you tell it to, but it has no idea what you want it to do. So if I open the UV editor, boom. So everyone just open UV editor, and you should see, oh, right here, the Unwrap UVW. Open UV editor. See it? Guys, come on. You have your Unwrap UVW. So click on it. Yeah. Unwrap UVW, not UVW. Sweet. All right, so you will see, if you open UV editor, you'll see this kind of panel that's a bunch of checkerboards on it. Now, what is this? This is a representation in 2D of where your 3D polygons are going. Let me show you. If I click on this guy, boom, you see that this is this polygon here. Let me just do a quick peel. Don't do what I'm doing, I'm just showing you. So if I move this and scale it, you see that it's affecting what it's doing. Can you see it there? And if I move it around, it kind of starts picking up other parts of the texture. So that's essentially how this UV editor works. Now, it doesn't help us that it's only a checkerboard in here. That's kind of annoying, because I don't really know what I'm doing with my polygon. So if I go to checker pattern checker up here, click on it, and pick texture, I need to go and do the whole bitmap thing all over again. And now I know that it's using this crate texture, okay? So I'll do that again. It was here, click on that, pick a texture, bitmap, and pick your texture again. All G. Okay, just give you about 2 seconds to do that. Oh my god, what do you have? What material did you put on? Open up the material panel. Like close the UV editor window and open up the material panel. Drag it on. All right. Jimmy, wait for you? Okay. Okay. So, I mean, it should be recorded anyway, so it should be fine. I'm going to select this guy. Now, I can scale, move, and rotate, and the shortcuts are exactly... Don't do it. I can scale, move, and rotate, and the shortcuts are exactly the same, right? So, W-E-R. So, W moves, E rotates, and R scales. And that's fine. I can do all that. Control Z, Z, Z. Now, there is a problem. You see when I move stuff, you see that it's like still stuck to the other polygons? So there's still lines there. And what's happening is you can't really see on the projector because it's kind of bad, but over here, they're being stretched because they're still kind of stuck to this polygon. So 3ds Max doesn't know that I want to like slice out this little polygon. So we're going to be doing a much more advanced form of unwrapping next week. But for today, there's a very quick option that only works really well on flat surfaces. And it is this guy, the quick peel. If I click on quick peel, now when I move it around, it's peeled. It's like separated from everything else. Okay? And I can scale that down. And let me put it in the wood area. And you see that it's now only showing the wood area. Whereas the other guys is still showing the whole picture. Alright? Now, I like the thing with quick peel is I can also select multiple things. The selection is here. If I select this whole 4-frame right here, quick peel it, and you see that it's peeled like this. I can move it around, but it kind of peeled perfectly to where I want it. And you see now it's taking up this area. If I click on this, it corresponds to this. This corresponds to that. And you can also overlap polygons. So 2 different polygons. This polygon can use the same texture area as this polygon. So let me quick peel this guy, and I'll scale it down. And it's overlapping on top of each other. They're using the same texture area, but that's completely fine. All it means is if I change his texture and I write like fragile here or something, it'll show up on both of them. That's all. Cool? All right, so essentially what I want you to do is unwrap all these bits and just make sure, there's also a quick peel button here, and just make sure the whole crate is unwrapped. Okay? Let's ignore the inside bits for now. These little inside bits, it's not great. We should unwrap them properly, but like for now, let's just do the basic unwrap. Also, these annoying green lines, these are where Max knows that you've cut lines out. You don't really need them. If you don't want them, you can scroll down here and turn off map seams there. It's up to you if you want them on. Cool. So you should end up with something like this. Scale and move it to where it should be. I think it's trying to do it automatic. Oh, it's changed the folder.
It's bad.
Just scale it. Scale it like yeah. Yeah, it's completely fine. Ignore the other boxes. They're just all the polygons that you haven't done yet. Right. So if you see a bunch of other polygons there, that's fine. They're just stuff that doesn't know where to go yet. All right, so you're just doing it one by one, and they should disappear. Yeah.
So that's
Oh my God! Hey, Polly.
That's why.
Yeah, that's why it doesn't work.
What's this?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And then turn off the edit button selection. Or it's here. Oh, it's selection. Oh, it's off already. Cool. Yeah, you probably had it on, and then now it should be off. And that's it. Does that work? Can you select polygons?
Whoa. Right on.
Okay. Guys, if you do a quick peel and you see a bunch of other little polygons, they're just all the other polygons that have not been unwrapped yet. That 3ds Max doesn't know where to put them, so it's just like, yeah, here you go. These are all these guys. Don't remember. Don't forget about them. All right. So don't worry about those. Just unwrap the cube face by face, and you see those little cubes start to disappear.
Actually, when you quick peel the second polygon, it resets it to be somewhere else completely.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Is this a new lovely
I have no idea.
2018 bug that I have to look forward to?
So like I'm
Yeah, that one's fine. Yeah.
This one?
Good deal. Oh, serious.
That's what I was offering you.
Oh, you have a... No, I can't have that. There's an anchoring as well. I have the old Apple one. You know.
Why does everything look different? All like change.
It's almost the same thing as quick build, but it's not it's a very flat thing.
No way it does not work this way.
Finder is weak.
Selection is still on. There's probably Okay, so a lot of people are doing this. If you see like a little icon next to Edible Poly, it means you still have a selection on in Edible Poly, and that's probably why you can't do anything in the Unwrap. So just go back down to Edible Poly, turn off all your selections like you have. You have it. Oh, okay, so. Fair. Let's check out the Twitch stream. Okay. Yeah, everyone's G.